Ever open FL Studio and you feel like you just hacked into NASA's control panel?
Houston, we have a problem.
Don't worry. You're not making rockets, you're just making beats. And by the end of this video, it's not going to feel like a spaceship, it's just going to feel like home. My name is Jason Dowdy, and I've been a producer for over 20 years, and my music's been showcased on shows like Dateline NBC, Top Chef VIP, and The Today Show. If you want to learn FL Studio, you've come to the right place. I'm here to make it easy.
This is so easy.
This is what FL Studio looks like in a blank session. So if you've opened it and it has a demo loaded, all you have to do is go here to File and go to New Basic 808 with Limiter. Click that, and it brings up a blank session that looks like this. We're going to be covering the 4 main tools in FL Studio and what each one of them does. So this is the playlist. This is the piano roll. This is the channel rack. And this is the mixer. So the way you cycle through that is through this panel right here. So we have playlist, piano roll, channel rack, mixer. Let's talk about each one. So let's start with the channel rack, this one right here. And I'm going to close out the mixer just so we have a clear view of what it is. So the channel rack is where you're going to load up all of your instruments. So you can see there's already a kick, clap, hi-hat, and snare preloaded for you. If you don't want to use any of these sounds, you can just right-click and delete. You can also create a template that has your favorite sounds and instruments done as well. We'll cover that in a later video. But this is where your instruments live. And if you wanted to add more instruments, you just click this plus button here. And it will bring up ones that you use often. You can favorite. And if they're one of your favorites, they will show up in this window. But if you click more plugins here, it will bring up all of the plugins that are loaded into the tool. So you can just choose any of these. So you likely have some stock sounds to begin with, depending on the version of FL Studio that you bought. We'll start with, let me find one real quick. We'll do FL Keys. That's what the channel rack is for. It's just loading your instruments. This is where your instruments go.
Fire.
So next, let's look at the playlist. So you just click this button here, right here. There we go. And we are looking at the playlist. Think of this as your song view. This is where you're building your song, you're putting things together, and you put them together by creating patterns. So we have like pattern 1 here. That could be a guitar line, a drum pattern, something like that. You have pattern 2 here. Maybe you add an additional instrument as you go. And this goes by measures or bars. So here's bar 1, bar 2, bar 3, bar 4. So that's what your playlist is for. It's to help you get a full song view, and you can arrange it by chorus, by verse, and things like that.
So good! What next? What next?
All right, now let's check out the mixer. So just click right here on a little icon that looks like this, and it brings up your mixer. You can use this for individual instruments is the way that I like to route it, meaning I like to put piano on one mixer channel. I like to put maybe the kick on another channel, the snare on another channel, a violin on another channel, right? Think of it as a way you can control each instrument. You can add effects, you can pan, you can change the volume right here with this fader. Think of this as your control station for your sounds.
I can barely contain myself.
And finally, the piano roll. So you access that by clicking on this icon right here. And you can see there's a little piano on the left, thus the name piano roll. This is where you can either step edit notes, meaning I could just add them in like this, right? Or you can actually play with a MIDI controller, which looks like a little keyboard, like a piano keyboard that you can play as well, and it will record the notes that you play. Either way, this is where you build your notes, your patterns, and things like that. This is where you build your music.
All day, every day.
All right, now let's talk about audio settings. So if you go right up here to Options, and you go to Audio Settings, it brings up this menu. Now, the first thing is you want to make sure that you set your ASIO. By default, if you're on a Windows machine, it should default to FL Studio ASIO. You can use that or ASIO for all. Either one of those should work fine for you unless you have a special audio interface or something like that. So we're just going to continue with FL Studio ASIO. Sample rate here, normally either 44100 or 4800 is the most common. The higher your sample rate, the more CPU and memory it's going to use. So keep that in mind as you put this together. Most of the sample rates that are requested in the work that I do is 4800.
Wow, that's a lot.
Now let's talk about buffer length. Actually, the lower it is with this one, the more CPU and memory it's going to take up. So depending on your machine, if you have a quad processor i9s with, hundreds and hundreds of gigs of RAM or something like that, you may not even have to worry about this. You'd probably want to put it on the lowest setting possible, like 256. I have a decent machine myself, so I keep it at 512. But the higher it is, the less it's going to give you those crackle sounds, and it's going to not max out your CPU as often. So depending on the specs of your machine, set it accordingly. Everything else, I just leave at the default settings. I haven't found a use case where I've even needed to mess with any of this yet.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Now let's talk about file structure and file settings. So go up here to Options. You're going to go to File Settings. And here is where you can draw in sounds like samples, drum kits, any of that type of stuff into a folder on Windows. For the duration of this training, this is with a Windows machine. There may be different rules for Apple. If you have a Mac, I'm sorry if this doesn't apply.
Oh boy.
But this is where you would load your folder. I suggest you just create one folder with all of your sounds, because you can use the browser here in FL Studio to search for sounds. So I have one folder called Sounds. I'm coming over here, so when I expand this, you can see all of my different sounds, and they all expand, keep expanding down until you have the sound that you need. One other thing I want to point out here is this, how often you autosave. I have it occasionally every 10 minutes. So if you are in the middle of doing a lot of work and everything you just did got erased, like FL Studio crashed or something like that, you have this as a backup that you can pull from. So I'm actually going to change this to very frequently, every minute, because you don't want to erase all of the work that you just did, because it's not just a time thing. Within that 10 minutes, you may have created something that you can't remember or you can't duplicate, right? So the more frequent you do it, the better, but it does take a little bit of CPU and memory to do that. Right over here, when it says maximum of 100, that's how many autosaves it saves for you. So it'll go back up to 100 instances every minute if you need, a previous save from 100 times ago.
Could use that.
And real quick, if you wanted to add another folder to this library, all you'd have to do is click this folder icon, go to, wherever you want to add that folder, click on the folder you want to add, select, and you can see it's automatically added that way, and it popped up over here on the left into this browser. Where is 8DO? Should be, right here. See, here is that folder that I just added, 8DO, and it's right over here. So it's that easy to add or remove a folder. So you just right click. If you want to remove the folder, you can just click on it, right click, do clear, and now that folder's gone. It's that simple.
It's so simple.
And one final thing I want to cover here is, to me, this gray by default that FL Studio has, to me, it's kind of ugly. So if you want to change the theme, all you have to do is go to Options, go to Theme Settings right here. This brings up all of the different themes that you can choose from. There's a pretty cool one down here called Ultra Green that you could just do right off the jump. I like this Adobe Black one here, so I'm going to choose that. So as we're working together from now on, we're going to be looking at a screen that looks more like this, because I don't want to work in that ugly gray. And I have another video that I will link to you right up here that will have how to change your theme. So if you want to download one from the community, I'll show you how to do that as well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, you made it through our first video. It wasn't so hard, was it? Right? It's pretty easy. We just got introduced to the playlist, the piano roll, the channel rack, and the mixer. We went over some audio settings. The big thing is, if you have a computer that doesn't have the greatest CPU or memory, you want to set that buffer really, really high. That way it won't crackle and pop and things like that. There will be more of a delay if you're playing on a MIDI controller, which is the piano that hooks up to your computer. If you're playing on that, there may be a little bit of delay if you're trying to record it. but you won't hear all of that crackling and popping.
Well, that sounds easy enough.
And then finally, we went over how to change your theme so you don't have to be looking at that ugly gray all the time. Let's go to the next video. Let's start making some music.